The collective's voice of wisdom whispers to all men that the best thing to do with a trip that seems vague and uncertain is to get off it. In city bus stations, whenever a mystical destination is called, they say that the buses don't run there anymore. After creating man, life turned over his fate to local conditions, which quickly realized the enormity of the job and asked that humans be given minds to help keep them distracted. Believing that with the good comes the bad is to actually believe that there is no good. One man used to insult himself until he reached the point of having difficulty distinguishing himself from other people. Why repetition sucks. Repetition can make you, 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 repetition can make you. Well, I guess I've made my point. The stomach enjoys the same foods over and over and over again, and so does the mind. But the stomach is smarter than the mind. So, go think that over. Every Thursday at 1 second past midnight, no matter where he was, this one man would look at what was in his hand and say to himself, TGIF, thank God it's a falafel. He says that through the use of the unexpected, he keeps himself in fighter's trim. Note to all of the two-eyed, your view of reality is not reality. Thank you for your attention, at least as much of it as you have and can spare. In one city, on some weekends and other odd times, they'd let a certain transcendental spirit act as part-time mayor. And on one occasion it announced, all who have books may burn them now and forget all the wisdom of your ancestors. How the mental life of man could work. You can make your waist look smaller by making your waist look smaller or making your chest or hips look larger. How the mental life of man could work. You can make your waist look smaller by making your waist look smaller or by making your hips or chest look larger. How the mental life of man could work, part 2. In a totally surprising turn of events, this year's Thelonious Monk Piano Prize was won by a thoroughly refreshed, though presently deceased, Thelonious Monk. Individuality, a poem. There is no mass awakening, nor no collective enlightenment. One man, in a sudden spurt of candor, commenting on what he did in life and how he managed his personal affairs, said, "Hey folks, it ain't brain surgery. In fact, it's just barely surpasses toenail clipping." Life told one finicky guy. Life told one finicky guy, look, even if you made every little thing just right now, it still wouldn't have any effect on how things will go in the future. And the guy asked, is that cause and effect? And life said, exactly. Health watch. Only men who think are ever upset. Verse 2. If you talk about things, they'll talk about themselves, and thus hide their true nature even deeper. Additional distinction. The body has no possessions. After achieving some daylight success in the city, one man bought himself some permanent press sheets, only to discover that he, at night, was permanently wrinkled. As the band began playing everyone's favorite song about looking for satisfaction in all the obvious places, one man opened his egg roll and found the fortune that said, "Skaters on quicksand wearing snowshoes." There was once a man who tried to wean himself from wearisome thoughts by constantly saying to himself, "When a crow is soaking wet, how much worse can life become?" Rationalization as explanation falls on all alike. Defined, the world's most pathetic, transparent, and meaningless form of flattery and deception. The word "I." One man wouldn't let anyone tell him anything, especially himself. Anything you enjoy as a spectator, you are a part of. Thus, if you enjoy hearing criticism, you are a part of the criticism. Bethought one man, as his inseam was being measured for his new suit, stripped of the non-essentials, what is the essential but the essential? Bethought a man, stripped of the non-essentials, what am I talking about? There are no non-essentials. Yes, agreed one man, I do want my vitamins and nutrition, but not in that form. Insulting remark of the more civilized. Hey, buddy, that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, you can bite my brain. Ordinary men love to say that. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. They love to say this based on the unrecognized fact that everyone is part of the problem. No. The problem being life as they perceive it. In the land where man used to live, when they made the mole, they threw away the him. Collective thinking defined a la the literary world. The ultimate, never-ending rewrite. How things are in certain parts of the city. Many continue to derive satisfaction in singing and dreaming of death, finding life so uncomfortable. The math of the city. No thought, no poetry. Animals are discomforted by being hungry in their stomach. Men in other areas. A true mystic does have an invisible hair shirt, which is also his Superman's cape, and it is this: relentless perseverance. The traditional wisdom of one family via their credo. When you're tired of the blind and the crippled, you're tired of life. One man left a note for himself in a flower pot. Idiots are a dime a dozen, and you make 13. Toward himself, one man's private motto was, "Don't call me, I'll call you," while his personal practice was, "Never answer the phone." The closest man's verbal reality might come to actual reality would be in the sum total of everyone's verbal reality. Limbed again. The transcendental state. Thinking without all the preferences. One man used his mouth as an inkwell. Oh, swell. Note, if it weren't for man's mind, we wouldn't be talking about man's mind. Oh, great. How humor can serve as informative comic relief. As per one man's description of how civilization works in toto, describes he, no matter what the civilized say, those who don't like Mozart are still okay. You can talk about the body all you want, because it can't hear. And you can talk about the mind all you want, because it don't care. In the land where man used to live, once they made the mole, they threw him away. How exceedingly large and needy life can be. A poem. A man sufficiently pissed will oftentimes be missed when circumstances arise that require the services of a sufficiently pissed man. If you try to explain why you do what you do, it's proof that you don't know why you do what you do. A nighttime genie came to a warrior in his sleep and said to him, "A mystical expedition will only work if you make it sound like a crusading assault on someone." And just in time, the knight awoke. Two unrelated news items. Life gave man a mind so that he'd never be alone. Most people feed their dogs better than they do themselves. One man used to constantly tell himself to heal until he came to a place where he couldn't hardly tell the difference between himself and everybody else. A farmer in a library, as he looked at the row upon row of various books and reflected on their sundry contents, said to himself, "And to think, all of it man just made up." How, allegorically speaking, illness in man's civilized realm can be used as a gauge of his health. If you can still throw up, you're not dead. Advanced diagnosticians may substitute stupid for throw up and alive for dead. Sound advice from a willow tree. If you're going to try and think for yourself, you'll soon discover you're surrounded by pines, sometimes known as Philistines. So just face it, forget it, and get on with your business. In the land where some used to live but left, whenever they make a mole, they toss themselves aside. If having a stomachache is proof that at least you have a stomach, then what is an argument evidence of? Even dressed in a cow costume, a real individual is never part of a herd. One man said, "I'm sick of talking about it." And life said, "Well, I'm sick of hearing about it." Yeah. But he was deceived. Life never said such a thing. The fact that the internal clocks of the mystical and the ordinary run at two different speeds is further evidence of their divergent molecular structure. At a certain place where certain traffic merged was a sign, "Take umbrage, give umbrage." How you could momentarily consider it while you're stirring your coffee or driving to the store. If man could not think, he wouldn't wonder what was the purpose of him being alive. The purpose of man being alive is to think. Neat, huh? Definition. Satire. Slipping in the rear door of a bus. Behind his house, strangers crept through the woods. He cleared the woods from behind his mind. In a show of bravado, one man said, "I won't mind death as long as I can be doped up when I'm dying." And life said, "What do you think you are now?" The transcendental state, compared to man's routine one, is the only destination once reached is never mentioned again. The true individual, though always alone, is not necessarily lonely. A night's packing reminder. On the mystical quest, take no mirrors. Underestimate chemicals at your own peril. The three stages in the gradual diminution of mental preference and criticism. You cease directing it at others. You cease directing it at yourself. And the eagle flies on Friday, and Saturday I go out to play. No one needs talk less than a mystic and lovers. Is there a difference? Life furnishing me with materials. Received a note. So that you won't worry, it's from no one present here. But somebody got a note here at the studio. And the person's not important except they had obviously, anyway, they had heard some of this and etc. And it is a prime example of something. Maybe I'll, as I continue to talk about it, maybe you can figure it out and maybe not. If not, you're part of the example. Remember, it has nothing to do with a person, but this is reflective of someone being exposed to this, watching on TV for some length of time, go to all the trouble. But now listen, this is a sane person. It's nothing out of the ordinary, the inquiry, but just listen to it. So could you speak on the correctness of living on this planet in such a manner as to help heal the planet, help heal the world? Isn't the health and well-being of the children and everyone else a prime concern? Each of us can make a difference. Collectively, we can transform the planet. I started pulling these out based on, I just got that when I walked in. But notice again how everything coincidentally either works out, or if you've got no consideration for reality and the proper use of language, you can make anything work out. The point being, I didn't know that note was written. I got here and this stuff was already written, and I can make it fit. I can make it. It's too bad we're not ordinary, some kind of religion that I could insinuate there was some great cosmic forces at work, that I just happened to write this stuff and then just happened to get this totally unexpected note. But it's not true. There could have been a note asking, how come we don't give rebates every time the people write in for a case of oil? And I could go, and make it fit. So all you got to do is have a complete disregard for the kind of stuff that they're asking. But let me run back over some of these that I just started pulling out because they do fit. We're about to make them fit. God damn it. Even dressed in a cow costume, a real individual is never part of a herd. To be part of a herd is to have all the concerns asked about here, for one thing. I don't mean I won't get back, but I wanted to just show you right quick. When you're tired, this was the traditional wisdom of one family via their credo. When you're tired of the blind and the crippled, you're tired of life. The note. Ordinary men love to say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. They love to say this based on the unrecognized fact that everyone is part of the problem, from their view, based upon the unrecognized fact that the problem, that, as they're calling it, is life. Anything you enjoy as a spectator, you are a part of. Thus, if you enjoy hearing criticism, you're a part of the criticism. If you'd like to tie that to the last one about part of the solution, etc. Life told one finicky guy, look, even if you made every little thing just right, right now, if you got everything just right like you want it, it said it still wouldn't have any effect on how things go in the future. And the guy said, oh, is that cause and effect? And life said, precisely. In case you thought I misread it. In one city, on some weekends and other odd times, they let a certain transcendental spirit act as part-time mayor, and on one occasion announced, all who have books made now burn them and forget all the wisdom of your ancestors. And after creating man, life turned over his fate to local conditions, which quickly realized the enormity of the job and asked that humans be given minds to help keep them distracted. Second part, believing that with the good comes the bad. Deep philosophical doo-doo there, folks. Believing that with the good comes the bad, which ordinary men would say that. The note, again, is to actually believe that there is no good. Since none of us are running for public office, or making a living, or give much of a goddamn what other cows think, it was just that this note, this question, you understand, one more time, I am not being funny about the note. As you know, that is just a splendid example of up-to-date social conscience, humane insight, and etc. That should we not be healing the planet? Should we not be concerned over the fate of the children and everyone else? Well, right there, it just covers the whole gamut. There is life speaking through man. And anyone who would criticize such concerns is an absolute idiot. I mean, they're not even worth talking about to criticize it. Which, as all of you know, is not what we're doing, criticizing it. But you realize that that is as far afield from any operational definition of what a transcendental view, a more conscious view of life would be, because it is not all that mystical or transcendental, not in the sense of, in Twilight Zone. It is to be able to live with the facts of life. And it's not to be a pessimist, and it's not to even fall into that category that passes for some sort of hip insight. When people say, yes, I'm accused of being a pessimist, but I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. Right, it's pessimist spelled another way. It's not that. See, to live with the facts of life, actually, the way out, or the reality of it is, to live with the facts of life, an ordinary person, someone who understood it would not be talking. Other than we'll have to exempt certain people. You'll have to figure out your own reason why we're doing this or why I'm involved with it. But I even stated tonight that the transcendental state, the mystical state, being more conscious, is one destination possible in the human repertoire. It is one destination that, if reached, is never mentioned again. Which is back to the fact that any mystic, anybody who ever had that kind of experience that you ever heard of, even if it is a, quote, historically valid fact, Saint so-and-so or Yogi so-and-so, whoever it was, if you've heard about him, all I can tell you, he was minor league, very minor league. Just assuming, I'm not trying to make a point about anybody in particular, but if he ever spoke about it again, anybody that reaches that condition then says, hey, I reached the condition. Just that. It normally doesn't stop there, because they normally after that want to start out some kind of church or write a book, sell some jams out in the lobby. But anybody who says it after that is real, I mean, about AAA ball maybe. It's about the best. They have lost it. They did not stay there. The destination was not actually achieved. Like I said, you're going to have to find your own excuse, if you need one, of why I'm staying here doing this. But I'm telling you a fact, that those who have reached the land, you never hear about it. And they do not disappear and go to Mars, and they don't suddenly vaporize. They just don't ever mention it again once you understand what it is. And it may not be any more mystical from one view. Then they simply see life as it is. Remember, one more time, not this fake thing that pessimists love to do of saying, no, I'm not a pessimist. I'm simply a hard-nosed realist. If you speak about it, you're one or the other. You do not understand life if you talk about life. That's just it. If you got anything to talk about life, I don't mean social conversation if you're not a hermit, which you're not, it's not necessary, but social conversation is just chit-chat. It's just nothing. It's purrs. It's strokes. It's licks between animals. But there is nothing to say once you understand what life is. There's nothing to say on a serious basis. That's why you so often hear around here that seriousness being made light of. Because once you understand what life's about, once you understand the secret, let's just call it that right quick. Once you got the secret, which every now and then people have it, you might also notice how tricky life is. People believe, ordinary people that are even passingly interested in the idea of the secret of life, the purpose of life, and they wish they knew it. And they continue to point out, speculate, reflect on the fact that so few ever seem to do it. And they normally want to count just the founders of all the world's great religions. They can normally just say, surely in history there's only been 4 or 5 people that ever knew the secret of life. And they think, God, how astounding. Again, they're the low level. They could have been a beard, for those of you who understand sexual intrigue. Nobody knows what a beard is. It's like if a prince, a king, or somebody important, and he's married and he's trying to date somebody else on the side, a mistress, then he would get somebody like his hairdresser, his interior decorator, his brother-in-law who was out of work, to bring her to the party. It's a beard, it's like a disguise to cover the fact that he wanted her there. So maybe later they could have a quick tryst in the pantry. All right, life, these 4 or 5 famous people who knew the secret of life, the secret, the purpose of life, as the ordinary would want to say, what I'm saying is, they would be very low level, if not an actual beard for somebody else. But if they existed, they're of no great consequence, because the fact is, those who really understood it, the reason that there's so few, you didn't lose your place, I know. That people who believe they're interested in this say, isn't it amazing? It shows the importance, or it shows the captious nature, the difficulty of ever perceiving the nature of life, because just look. And we're talking about intelligent people. Let's say, just consider there's only been, surely, 5 or 6 people who understood the secret of life, which proves how obtuse, how difficult it is. They never consider the fact that those 5 or 6 was almost nothing, or what I'm telling you, those who actually understand it never say anything. I mean, once you see it, there's nothing to say. And some of you have been awfully close, or let's assume you'll find it for yourself. Once you see it, it's not like you're going to run and call your best friend your drinking buddy, or your pot smoking buddy, or your philosophical discussing at midnight buddy. No, you might then. I shouldn't. You're not going to go call your mother, your father. You're not going to suddenly stop people on the street for free. You know, no axe to grind. You start, as soon as you recognize what life's about, at that same moment you recognize, well, you don't have to think about it, but you know that you're never going to mention it. Who are you going to mention it to? Now, I know that to you that may sound like a rhetorical question, but you instantly recognize, I can start dissecting it again, you instantly recognize, because based on yourself, you recognize how far afield you were from the secret and the purpose of life. Yeah. And don't ask me in what direction, any direction. Anything you ever thought wasn't it. It's just, you get there and you look and it's like, and I'm exaggerating that to go, because you look and you say, well, You know, I don't mean you're disappointed, but you see it and there's nothing to say. Unless you're a low-level seer. Unless you see it and kind of bounce out, you know, like looking at an eclipse and you get partially blind. That is, you end up back at the bus station. You end up in the minor leagues. You may have had the experience, but the only way that you're ever going to mention it is some way you have to lose it to some degree. That at one time, like, let's say you're batting 500. If we're going to use a baseball analogy, I don't know why not. But let's say the mystical, understanding the secret of life is like suddenly you're batting 500. If you ever talk about it, what it means is you have slipped back to, you know, like 185. They have sent you back to Birmingham, Omaha. You're back in AAA ball. You understand? Because if you do not slip, if you simply see it, you simultaneously, when I say you realize it, you just don't ever speak about it again. Because you do realize instantly that this is nothing like I thought. And that's not a good statement, and that's not the truth, by the way, because it's everything you thought. It's everything I say it every time we meet. But anyway, once you see it, it's a whole different thing. You go. Now, I'm exaggerating now, but that's... If I say something like you see it and go, well. I know that strikes a lot of people and you think, boy, that's heavy. There's a lot in that. I know there's too much. Because you don't even say, well. I am serious. There is nothing to say. Literally. If you see it, there's nothing to say. If you do say anything, even to yourself, if you make any comment, which is also what you hear around here referred to as criticism, etc., it doesn't have to be just, boy, I don't like that. Every time I use criticism, you should know by now, it's any qualitative remark. It's putting a name on anything. Even, well. Because well implies something. So if you see it and say, well, even to yourself, you have slipped. Already the manager, the great cosmic manager of that team, you're batting 500 suddenly. And as soon as you go, well, he writes your number down and he makes sure he's got still the phone number, how to get hold where the Omaha team is traveling to in case they got to ship you out. In other words, he knows, hey, that 500, that spurt you had there, that was strictly a miracle. No. Because there is nothing to say. And if you do say anything, if you write anything, if you say, well, I'm here to help everyone, you're back in the minor leagues, even if you ever did see anything. Anyone who asks, which the herd does ask, you got to remember, we're not just picking on whoever wrote the note, to say, how are we going to heal the planet? All they're saying is, how are we going to change their terminology of what's going on? What are we going to say? Because whoever writes a note like that, which is all of humanity, all of civilized humanity, they're supposed to be concerned. But they are saying, well. Being alive could be good, but with the good comes certain bad that we got to straighten out. No. If you think with the good comes the bad, then you don't know what good is. Because good is indefinable. Good is unspeakable. Good does not even include my. To live with reality, to live with the facts of life is that as they are, about the closest acceptable thing you'll find to a comment I've already done. About the closest might be, if you're by yourself, nobody notices, you might go, I guess if you're a real demonstrative sort, you might go, which is actually overdoing it because just, of course, internally to go, actually does it. If you can see my eyes, you go, there's nothing more shocking than that because what you have just done, or I was insinuating through expensive theatrics, is you have just transcended, in the true sense, all sense of I, because all I is a dichotomous function that your mind still thinks, well, it's I seeing things, I deciding, maybe based upon good historical evidence, based upon good religious backup that says, well, we should be concerned about our fellow man, or based currently on very, very substantial, statistically valid evidence that we are destroying the planet and we must reverse the process. The whole ecology movement is right behind me. That is a comment. That is a criticism of life. What I want you to consider is how far removed everything that is decent, wholesome, and especially sane, but decent and wholesome, which you don't normally hear around here laying on that, because picking on logic, picking on human mind, people will stand for that. But if you start picking on what seems to be feelings, especially higher feelings, not just getting down and rooting in the gutter with some girl that you picked up at a bar, some illicit sex, we're talking about concern for your fellow man. Concern for humanity, or nowadays the new form of caring about God, concern for the planet. How to heal the planet. After all this, and what you've heard if you've been listening with any, I know you can't listen all the time with anything that's actually objective, because you could listen objectively, you wouldn't need to listen. I mean, that's the way it is. Well, it doesn't be entertained, but by now, if there was enough of you, then we'd be taking turns, and you'd be up here, and I'd be out there, and then somebody else would be up here, and we'd put all the chairs up here, and I'd sit out there, and all of you. In other words, everything evidences itself. But you know how can you? But now consider on your own understanding how far removed living with reality is to being concerned that we're destroying the planet, or concerned for our children. Oh, I can make it even worse. That gets away from, as I said, that which is fairly acceptable to people if they just listen to this in passing. And if you just sound like you're attacking intellectual attitudes, then go, well. But if you sound like you started attacking charity, good intentions, concern for the downtrodden and the hungry, people get very upset. They're supposed to. And so to even talk along those lines, when by now people that's been around this know that that's not the purpose, but to even start dismissing that, to make it sound as though it's a valid form for any consideration, like we should be concerned about our fellow man. Right. But then what? That has nothing to do with living with the facts of life. A third time, this is not an excuse for pessimism. It's not the pessimist saying, well, I'm just a realist. I'm not, no, I'm just telling you like it is. I'm not telling you like it is. I'm just talking. Yeah. Like it is don't need to be told. Nobody can tell you like it is, which is one of the little side steps that even if they didn't go to Arthur Murray, that the pessimists like to do, and they say, no, I'm not a pessimist. I'm just a hard-nosed realist. And in fact, I'm not bad-mouthing life. I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling you like it is. If you're telling anything like it is, then you're not telling it like it is. If you knew how it is, you'd have no comment. Again, you've got to make your excuses or explanations of why I'm staying here doing this. But when you understand how things are, then that's how they are. And if you say, well, wait a minute, let me tell you how things are, then you're not. You're not misleading anybody. Life obviously had room for you to do that, but if you're trying to see what life is about, you're misleading yourself to think that any comment you have, no matter how well-founded, no matter how much of the hurt it is, which to say that I'm concerned for my fellow man. You are in the midst, and it's no offense, but to draw a picture, you are in the midst of a great sheep flock, and you're going, bah. That's it. Or if maybe you can shift over. You find yourself amongst cows, and you know the rest of it, and then you go moo. That's humane, or bovinian. It is showing concern for your fellow cow, your fellow sheep. You are part of the herd. You are sane. You are civilized. But it has, I'm going to have to warn you, this is a lie. And there's no way to put it. It has nothing to do with reality. You know, it has something to do with reality. But so little that that's a lie, but there's nothing else to say. Unless we just want to now go into pantomime. As long as a person stays involved with concerns over their fellow man, which is simply all anybody's ever saying is what they perceive to be the injustice of life. As long as you stay involved with that, you will stay in the midst of a herd. You will be sane. You may be a leader in your community. You may be a leader in admirable affairs. You may win peace prizes. You may win the honor, respect to the community. But you are no closer to reality, to the facts of life. Not the pessimistic facts, not the realistic facts. The facts. You are no closer than you were the day you were born. You are no closer than a cow is. You are close as a human is. That yes, I'm concerned over this. That has nothing whatsoever to do with life. Remember, that was a lie, but that's the best you can put it. If you stay concerned with that, speaking about someone who would attempt to do something extraordinary, someone attempting to finish their own trip while they're alive, everybody else is still rolling. They're still marching. And someone attempting to be a mystic, someone attempting to expand themselves, someone attempting to do this unspeakable act. What they're attempting to do is to complete their journey right now. And that has nothing to do with reincarnation. Oh, well, it does if you think it does. But it has nothing to do, well, I want to work out all of my bad karma and get all over with now so I won't come back next time, as a real mad paper hanger. You thought I was going to say attorney or some other idiot. Madman. No, it's not just I want to finish it now in this lifetime. Now, you could say that as a description of a mystic, but let me give you a better one. It doesn't cost any more. You want to finish it, forget in this lifetime, you want to finish it now! But then even would-be mystics, they go, well, wait a minute. No sense, drawing that kind of line in the sand because you put yourself in a kind of an uncomfortable position because you got the rest of your life. Now! That's part of the would-be mystic's way out as well. I feel like I'm getting better. I'm working with some of my problems. I contribute more to people. I'm more concerned about my fellow man. I need to investigate some other groups. I need to read some more books. Now! Because there, you don't have to die. There is reincarnation. There is life after life after life after life. But you don't have to die to go through that. All you got to do is be concerned. All you got to do is be ordinary. You are trying to complete the journey now. But part of being concerned, part of being ordinary, is to keep yourself in fighter's trim. Yeah, I'm always upset. Always looking out for injustice. Always finding out where life is running amok. Always seeing how people misuse each other. How do people get so insightful without my help? Or without yours? That just people can say, just people out in the street. People never having the benefit of having sat down with the likes of us and fellowshipped over a nice cup of coffee or something harder. And these people, off on their own some way, can just suddenly say, I look and I see injustice. I see people hungry. I see people disturbed. I see people with psychological problems. I mean, it really makes you feel like, where did I go wrong? I mean, I worked so hard for this to get to this point, and these people just suddenly walk down the street and look around and go, things are not right. I mean, it puts you in your place. Makes you realize how insignificant your thinking is. It has nothing to do with how life is. It has everything in the world to do how partisan life is, how the life of collective man is. The life of collective man has got to, the cows, the sheep, ordinary men, sane, decent people, your parents, everybody except a handful. Everybody who is trying to get the bus straightened out, to clean up the aisles, to get everybody a window seat, make sure everybody's got a brown bag full of food, take away their drugs, get those little cheap gin bottles out of those brown bags and fill them up with good nutrition, things like any chemicals, and get people straightened out. That's our job. You have got to have that. And they believe that in some way the bus strip can be straightened out now. In times past, they believe it'd be straightened up in the next lifetime, but people by now should be able to see that's all the same thing. The only difference, or there is no difference. It's just terminology of people believing now that we might have a sophisticated, educated, humanistic atheist or agnostic and say, well, religion's not my problem. I don't worry about life after death. There's enough for us to do now in this lifetime. We have people starving. We have the downtrodden. We have social inequality and financial inequality. And there's enough for us to do now. But now you should be able to hear that is the same thing as someone saying, well, I know life sucks and it's not right, but it's some way we ran amok, and after we die, it'll be all right. It's the same thing. I mean, it can sound as though, I assume that I stretched it enough right quick, it can sound as though, well, hey, that's two different things, absolutely. No, it's not. It's the same thing. It's believing that something's wrong and it'll be straightened out. It's just a matter of what time. Now, 50 years from now. It has no connection with how life is. The collective must keep saying that. They've gone from now believing that, well, we've been through this. We're destroying the planet. We're destroying one another. we're stepping on one another. It's just that things are not right. And by God, it's about time we straightened out, and many people can just smell success just right over the horizon. If we just buckle down here and more of us get down here and pick up all the trash out of the aisles of this bus and tell the driver to slow down and keep it in the road and don't be drinking, get the air conditioner fixed, put up maybe some air fresheners, get everybody a bath, get everybody a good seat, make sure everybody has a window seat. That's all we got to do. On top of all this, even taking the well-known, historically known, apparent mystical figures, the founders of all the world's great religions, which from an ordinary view, ordinary people take them as being the prototype, as being the paradigm of humane people. I mean, who cares more about their fellow man than the founders of the great religions, from almost anybody's view? And they take everything they say. They can take all the holy scriptures on this planet, and that all sounds as though that our purpose here is to, in some way, do the will of the gods, and the will of the gods is to help straighten things out. If you get away from that at all, that is, get away from your own bovine mind, you can read the same thing, and you may have read it all of your life, or grew up around it. You can pick out the one in which you did grow up, or pick out ones that you have read before that could have been extraneous to your childhood, and you can read them, and they're saying exactly the opposite, which lends credence to those hangers on the street corners of would-be mystics that always believe that there's secret info even in these ordinary books. Yeah, there is. But hell, there's secret info in your brain. There's secret info. Well, there's secret info in a man saying, wait a minute. The most important thing, what we've got to do before we consider anything else, we have got to heal this planet. Now, let's just say he thinks that is up to date, that is sane, that is just intelligent. But if that was a man with any potential, at the same time, he would realize, wait a minute, there's a coded message in that. I don't have to go start trying to find some obscure, supposedly, little group of writings that some Tibetan monk left that was obviously allegory, and it was talking about sexual acts or geological surveys. But I've already heard it rumored that if you know how to read it, if you got the kind of key to it, if you can find the key to this, it is actually a very, probably the supreme mystical piece of information's in there. Yeah. But take just what I said. What we've got to do, the most important, we've got to heal this planet. All right, take it. Everybody else takes that right now as just at surface level. There is secret, esoteric, mystical, hidden information in that. And anything you think that's sane, that's anything that's part of the collective of saying our most important job is to look after our fellow man. Okay? How about that? Non-religious, non-partisan. Good. Now forget the literal. There's a secret message in that. I'm talking about real secret message. I'm talking about esoteric info. I'm talking about data you can use. Well, unless you're trying to stay in the herd. Because it got nothing to do with the herd. But that's why I said it is almost the opposite. That you can read the scriptures. You can read the holy writings. And they all appear to be talking, as men like to say, the more worldly wise, they like to say, well, all the religions, they may sound differently and they may have different dogmas and rituals, but they're all spokes from the center wheel of one thing. And they all have the same message in different languages. And they go, yes, it's all about helping heal the planet. It's like they call it now. In the past times, it's helping healing man's soul. But it's all the same. It's that, something's wrong, and it's part of our job. The gods, fate, just universal forces put us here. We're the ones with intelligence, and it's up to us to look after our fellow man and to undo the damage that we have done just by existing. There is a secret message in that. That, as far as words go, which is far enough, is exactly the opposite. Back to my comment that living with life, understanding the secret of life, has got nothing to do with what ordinary people think it does. Not that they're wrong, what anybody's ordinary mind does. It is the collective wisdom of humanity that things are not right. And that's beyond debate. No sane person would go, wait a minute, things are perfect. You know you wouldn't do that. Of course, we're back to this. If you understand anything, you wouldn't say anything anyway, but since none of you seem to show any interest in me doing 30 minutes worth of my Marcel macaroni imitation, or whoever. No one would deny, you would not stand up in the middle of collective sane society at any time and place and refute when someone says things are not right. What are you going to say? Things are perfect. As soon as they open up, they can say, look at this. And they show you a newspaper. They point to the television. Or they just say, do you realize that today in such and such country, 1,500 children under the age of 5 died? What the hell are you going to say to that? The reality of life. See, there was another one in there that said, when life got through creating man, it turned him over, at least on this planet, to local conditions, as I've been calling it, which is, I might say, a darn good description. It turned man over to local conditions. Life created him, go, all right, you take it over. You could say Mother Earth. I wouldn't, but based upon this, I call it local conditions. And it said, you take care of him. And so local conditions immediately, not being a dummy, it grasped the enormity of what was, okay. And then said, wait a minute. And it asked that, would you give him a mind to help keep him distracted? Tacit in that, of course, is that local conditions obviously understood the purpose of life creating man here. So I didn't put that in there. It just says when life got through creating man, we're talking about us, man, on this planet, it turned his care over, turned over to local conditions. And life was about to go off about other business, and local conditions immediately looked and realized what was up. And they said, wait, could you give him a mind to help keep him distracted? And that was all I said. But to understand tacit in that, you understand when I said the enormity of the job, it is that local conditions look and realize, uh-oh. So you got to figure out what uh-oh. Well, uh-oh, you don't have to figure. Uh-oh is reality. Uh-oh is the facts, which you can't see if you look with two brains. That's why we got two hemispheres, bovine and sheep. Or for those of you that are more technically inclined, bovine and a mirror. Or, for those of you that are more interested in specific examples and gossip, Gore Vidal, William F. Buckley. King George, George Washington. That's enough. It gave him a mind. And so now it is the mind that says, we're not, of course you know, again, no sane person is in favor of someone dying, but to bring out the specific examples for someone to believe that they are speaking in some intelligent, insightful way individually, that they figured out, that they go, wait a minute, if a cry went out from the cow herd, from the collective, from the civilization of humanity, at any particular time the cry goes out, it is still man's purpose to help heal the planet, to help heal humanity. And you went, no, it's not. And they go, wait a minute. And they say, and they give you whatever example, 1,500 children starve today in such and such area, today, under the age of 5. And they look at you. There is no defense. But that is reality. Man has to think to stay distracted. We're getting to the real tricky right then. I'm going to stop with this tape. See, you can't defend children starving. But notice this. And you've got to be able, I hate to put in words, figuratively speaking, you're either going to die of starvation, die from a car accident, die from cancer. I know, let me put it this way. You're going to die. The government of some country didn't cause children to die, but the mind must say it does. On the other side of the world, no matter who we are, I don't mean just people here in this country, but humanity's indifference The hard-hearted view of humanity is not what causes children to starve. Life does. People are not killing people. To believe that, you are suffering from a form of hubris that would make the Greeks blush. They would go, God almighty. You know? And we thought some of our Caesars were vain and blown up. Jesus. If they look now, they'd think ordinary men in the street. You know, give me a break. I'm glad I'm dead. To be concerned mentally with the affairs of man, with the injustice, is to forever keep you away from reality. Is to forever keep you away from understanding what life is. And notice what I said. I didn't say doing something about it. I mean, that's one thing if you're going to go and try to feed hungry children, if you're going to try to stop somebody who's being beat up by somebody bigger, that's one thing. That's not what I said. To be captured of that verbally, which is as far as most people's charity and concern goes anyway. And several people went, I was hoping you wouldn't say that. You hadn't thought about it, but as soon as I said it, you went, I wish. That's as far as it goes. Except notice, in the civilized world, that's as far as it need go. Which is a problem in a sense. Because somebody stands up and says, wait a minute, what are you people over there trying to worry about? I don't mean to you, but they'd be saying to some group, what are you trying to worry about, trying to expand your own consciousness or some of that stuff? We got children starving. And you say, well, go feed them. And they go, wait a minute. I'm the one that's got the petition. I'm the one that pointed out to you. We're not picking up, but you understand that's as far as most people's charity goes. It's not an attack. That's as far as it's supposed to go. But that's further than you would be going if you said, that's not, we can't help that. They're going, what do you mean you can't help it? At least let's talk about it. Let's sign a petition sent to the UN and tell them, hey, we're in favor of children not starving. And you say, well, what the hell good's that going to do? They go, what's better than nothing? It's not like you saying, well, there's nothing we can do. You understand? Doing something's one thing. Talking about it's something else. And talking about anything is not reality.